Hi, my name is Neil Bellon, and this is a series of short videos demonstrating my teaching style. As a chess coach, I generally work with beginning tournament players, those rated below 1400. And one of the most important things for a tournament player at all levels is to have a solid opening repertoire. You need to know exactly how you're going to respond to White's first move. And here we're going to be dealing with e4. Now, there are many ways to respond to this. For example, you have the Sicilian defense, which is c5, and I don't advocate that just because it's a theoretical nightmare. There's just so much you have to know. It gets very complicated, and I think even the same is true for e5 as well. I think it can become very difficult, and as traditional as a move, as e5 is, I think it can lead to a lot of problems, only because, like I said, there's so much theory you have to know. So what I'm advocating against e4 is black, and what I teach my students is the French defense, which is e6. Okay? And the idea behind e6 is that you're going to follow up with this thrust, d5. Okay? So after e4, e6, White generally follows with d4 to get that classic pawn center. But now black does this, and that's your French defense. Okay, that position right there. And at this point, there's really only three responses you have to deal with as black, unless White does something really insane. The first is the advanced variation, and that's a separate discussion altogether. But the advanced variation, just real quick, he advances the pawn. And I actually like this variation as black because I think it's easy to play against. But that's another discussion. The other response is the exchange variation, where White goes like this. They exchange pawns, okay? And then black takes back here. All right? But what we're dealing with in this example is, let me just get the position, when White does either knight d2 or knight c3. It really doesn't matter because our response is going to be the same. So I'll do knight c3, okay? And what we're going to do here is we're going to take, okay? And then White takes back, otherwise he's a pawn down for nothing. And remember, if this knight had been on d2 originally, he would take back the same way, okay? So this is the position now, and what I'm advocating is the Fort Knox variation, where black plays now bishop d7, and the idea is to go bishop d7 and then put this on c6 right away. And the reason is, by putting the bishop on c6, you're putting it on a beautiful open diagonal. Traditionally in the French defense, just a little bit of a background, the light squared bishop for black is a bad piece because it's blocked by this center pawn. That's what makes it a bad bishop. So by putting it on c6 right away, you're now making it a good bishop. And this opening, it's very solid. It's more concerned about where your pieces belong rather than individual moves. There's not as much theory, and it's very playable. I use it myself. I mean, even Karpov has used it. But at any rate, we're going to go here, and then White generally does something like this. He's going to want to develop his kingside pieces and castle. And then the whole point of this variation is now this move, as we just mentioned. Bishop c6 right away. That's your Fort Knox variation. Okay? Immediately putting the traditionally bad bishop on a strong diagonal. Okay? And at this point, black can trade on e4. He can leave it there as an attacking piece. And it's very solid. It's very solid. Now, at this point, the knight's hanging on e4, so White will generally follow up with something like that, okay, developing while protecting. And what happens now is that we need to develop our other pieces. So what I advocate for black here is basically this knight is going to end up there on d7. Okay, the bishop's going to end up on e7, and then this knight's going to end up on f6. So it's very clear where your pieces belong, which is why my students like this opening. and it's really tough for white to crack. It's called the Fort Knox variation because, you know, black's position is like a fort. It's very solid. It's very tough for white to do anything. Okay, so now what happens here is generally we'll go like this. Okay, white, let's say, castles, and then we'll put the pieces exactly where I mentioned. You know, this will go here. Let's say white does that, and then this goes here, and then we'll follow up with castling. So let's say white takes, black takes back. I like to take back with the knight because it covers e4, and then we'll follow up with castling, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So black has developed his pieces. He's gotten the traditionally bad bishop on a great square, and he'll have a playable middle game. Just one quick thing I just want to mention, if I could just go back to the position. We take here, right there, and then the bishop right away. Now, you might see white do something like this. They might go like that, okay, knight g3. That basically means they want to keep pieces on the board and attack. They don't want to make things easy for black by letting him trade on e4. But even if white does play that, black still is a very solid position. So there's nothing to worry about. And you're pretty much still going to develop your pieces more or less the same way. Okay, so let me just review real quick from the top. E4, and then we're going to do E6, D4, D5. Okay, the particular variation we're dealing with is when white goes knight C3 or knight D2. We take, white takes, and then we're going to go bishop D7 followed by C6. So when I teach this opening to my students, I basically tell them, I go, it's really just about this. When you get to this point, it's just about, you know, there and there, you know, bam, bam, getting that bishop on C6. That's really all there is to it. So there, right, knight F3, and then there you go. And as I said, you'll develop the other pieces accordingly. This knight goes there, bishop there, this knight there, and then you castle. Very learnable opening, very solid, avoids a lot of theory. And because it's more of a system opening, concerned about where your pieces belong, it's very playable. I've had a lot of success with it as a tournament player. I don't know if I mentioned, I mean, you know, the great Karpov has used this opening. And I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Be sure to check out some of the other videos, which, you know, I'll talk about tactics and the end game and psychology and middle game stuff and my approach to my students with that. Thank you.